All right, everyone, we start off today with an interesting article, link in the description, archived, of course. It's rather telling that Kamala Harris won't even give a presser or talk really to the legacy media. There's probably a reason for that. I think that people can possibly surmise the reason. She's not well-spoken. She's incapable of conveying herself in a way that the average person would comprehend. Like, she'll say something, and like, if you're linguistically inclined, you'll kind of get what she means, but she doesn't say it in a way that the average person would fully comprehend. And so when she's questioned even by the legacy media, despite the fact that it literally works with the Biden White House, it doesn't go over so well. And this is the reason why she's also trying to skip out on the September debate. They can pretend that Donald Trump is the one that has a problem with the debate rules. It's Kamala Harris at the 11th hour that's trying to change those debate rules. That's been established. And then there was a weird... We're going to be talking more in depth about this in another video today. It was a weird moment where, like, Trump was countermanding his own staff, and it didn't quite 100% make sense exactly what the hell was going on. It's like the Battle of Five Armies. I posted that on Twitter the other day. I'm like, literally... It's Trump versus his staff versus Kamala. Well, I'll get into it in a future video. But Harris doesn't even want to take basic questions from, media outlets that have openly bragged about the fact that they work with the Biden White House. Meanwhile, Biden is a no-show. Now, I want proof of life at this point because it's like, does he even still exist anymore? Well, it's not entirely clear. Kamala Harris somehow is less coherent. Considering how the first presidential debate went, the first of what now should technically be 3 because Trump pledged 2 debates, the Biden one doesn't technically count, he's not the nominee. Considering how that went, considering that Kamala Harris is less coherent than him, I imagine that it's going to be a bloodbath, actually. When you use that term, by the way, the legacy media will say that you're inciting violence or something like that. No, but it will be a political bloodbath. Trump is going to eviscerate her. There's no other way to put it. She's going to try to girl boss it up. She's trying to get the debate rules changed. But she doesn't even want to talk to the goddamn legacy media. These people love her. And even those that don't really like her, and they're few and far between, they still aren't going to criticize her because she happens to be female and she happens to be a BIPOC. She happens to be non-white. So they're not going to target her at all. If they treated Biden with kid gloves, and they did for 3 years before finally it became untenable, they are absolutely going to circle wagons around Kamala Harris. But she's so poorly spoken and so poor at conveying an actual meaningful message to people that basically she has no choice but to hide. Biden did this in 2020. You'll remember during that period. It was Hidin Biden. There was a reason for that. It's because he was in cognitive decline. And keep in mind, his cognitive decline in 2020 was nothing compared to what we saw on the debate stage, last month, or the month before that, rather. They hid him. When he went to rallies, there were like 20 people allowed to show up. That was to hide the fact that there was absolutely no enthusiasm for his campaign. Harris is effectively taking up the same strategy. She's trying to hide from even the legacy media that fawns on her. You look at the differential, for example, between Time magazine covers when they treat on Trump versus when they're hallmarking Kamala Harris. It's night and day. There's no comparison whatsoever. There's no attempt not to be transparently biased. That same legacy media, though, she is effectively ignoring. They're beginning to get mad at this. This might be a problem for the Kamala Harris campaign. Look, the legacy media wants her to win. They like her, or at the very least, they tolerate her and or dislike her less than they dislike Trump because he's going to break the toys, and they're part of the uniparty system. That much is fairly clear. But let's say that Kamala Harris literally never gives a presser. Let's say that she literally never takes their questions. or only on very rare occasions. It's basically like, the equivalent of a birthday or something like that. Eventually, the legacy media, which can get fickle, is going to stab her in the back. That's what will happen. Because they want those exclusives. They want the exclusive interview with Kamala Harris. Man, I got to sit down for an hour with the Democratic presidential candidate / VP / former prosecutor. This is a great time. It's a great thing for my career because I've got this exclusive interview. No other network can cover it. Someone from CBS, ABC, CNN, wherever the hell it happens to be. They're going to want those things. The Harris administration, which is basically what it is at this point, is effectively trying to hide her. And the only reason for that is that she is very poor at conveying information. She'll say things that don't quite make sense. Again, if you've studied linguistics, you can kind of understand what she means. But most people haven't. Most people, they passively absorb the things that are being said to them. You have to be very direct, relatively blunt, usually, and terse in order to convey information in a meaningful sense to the average American citizen. This is, by the way, not an insult to people. People tend to compact information. It's normal. There's nothing wrong with it. But it does present challenges. For example, legacy media can write an article, and they know that the first few sentences most people will absorb. Everything else after that, they slowly tune it out. Well, fairly quickly tune it out in most cases. Therefore, you can lie to people by putting a misleading headline up with a couple of sentences of misleading info, and then the real truth is buried down in the story. Kamala Harris can't even pull this sort of thing off. She's simply incapable of getting her point across to people. When Trump speaks, they've tried to criticize him, right? You've seen numerous legacy media articles to this effect. They'll say, well, he talks on a third grade level and stupid shit like that, which isn't even true. But him not dumbing himself down, but being more terse, especially in a linear format, which he's gotten better at, thankfully, and using more simplistic terminology allows him to communicate more effectively with the average person. We've got to understand the average person is not a Harvard PhD. Not that that means anything these days. Anyway, they're not. They don't have a master's degree in English. Kamala Harris is very verbose, but it's basically the sound and the fury, sort of like Joe Biden is. I wonder why she was chosen as running mate other than the color of her skin and certainly not the content of her character. Joe Biden had the same problem. He would use he would do the big word thing, but then he would become incoherent and sometimes you wouldn't know what the fuck he was even talking about. With Kamala, it's even more common. And she can't claim, well, I've got cognitive decline, I've got dementia, I'm old. She's in her 50s. So there's a difference between these two individuals. She won't even talk to legacy media outlets that are effectively being paid, bought and paid for, by the administration that she's part of. You think she's going to do well in a debate against Donald Trump? Me no think so. That's about all. Peace out.